Portland's #1 talker. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Toby. And thanks for hosting this with Justine. It's great to be here on a beautiful summer afternoon here on the Cape. And I stay in Harwichport, and my next door neighbor is Thomas P. Tip O'Neill III, the former lieutenant governor.
We were there first.
Yeah, we were there. Yeah. He moved in, and we said, "There goes the neighborhood." But I'm glad to be here this afternoon, and I'm glad to be with Mike Minogue, and we're gonna have like a fireside chat here. And even though there's no wheelchair for us to be in like the old days with the fireside chats. But Mike, why don't we sit down and we're gonna talk? And,
sure, if I could just say one thing to Toby, 9 is no in German, so you can say 9 on 9. Love it. Great speech.
I told Toby, I said they must think that they have the votes to defeat him because they let it go on the ballot. Because there's nothing on the level in this state. And I see a lot of people know personally how nothing is on the level in this state. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about. This is many people here have their own stories about what's happened to them. This is like a situation of soft despotism, as they say. And they're just they move in different ways, whether it's using the NGOs like Jay was talking about, or they're cutting down on the businesses in the North End in Boston that they don't like. They allow people to remain in the country. They say they're protecting their civil rights because of TPS, and they end up shooting up other Haitians on Hyde Park Avenue. It's a disaster from start to finish. So I was going to start off with a story, Mike, just to set this thing up. I remember in 1978 there was Ed King was running for governor in the Democrat primary against Mike Dukakis, who was wildly unpopular. Think of him as a Mara Healey prototype. Just a really unpopular person, no personality, unpopular policies, and so, but they never thought anyone could beat Mike Dukakis. And at the end, Ed King, just a BC guy, BC former pro football player, snuck up and won the primary, and it was a shocker. And at the party, the victory party at Anthony's Pier 4. A reporter, I think from the Globe, went up to Angelo Berlandi. He was an old state rep from Hyde Park, one of the old triple districts, and he was the one who organized everything. He organized the whole campaign. You know a little bit of this story. You've read a little bit about it. And so the reporter said, "Angelo, how did you do this?" And Angelo, maybe it had a couple of drinks, but he was honest. He said, "We put all the hate groups together in one pot and let them boil." And I know that's a little blunt and rude for 2026, but the fact is, let's just put it this way: there's a lot of dissatisfied groups, and I see them represented here, from all over, and they're getting screwed in every way imaginable by every insane policy that she's put in effect. And I want to know how you're going to put these hate groups together. And honestly, I haven't seen much in your ads lately. I mean, these are nice, these are kind of generic ads. I would think if I went to Nebraska, I'd see the same kind of ad for a new guy, a new candidate. When are you going to start putting everybody in the pot to boil? And that's my first question.
That's a good first question. How are you going to boil the hate? So it's a great.
I said we can update the word hate. I made that clear.
So part of politics is that I've learned is the politicians do want to divide us. They want us to hate each other, and in a good strategy, the silent assassin is more successful. And the way that we're looking at this is collectively we're talking about things that 75% of the state agrees with, right? Do the audit. It costs too much money to live here. We need jobs to grow, not be negative, and we need to keep communities safe. What we've done though, and one of the problems is the Republican Party is only 8%. And I was an independent for 19 years when I ran my public company. But 8% means you don't have a ground game. We are building the biggest ground game in the history or in our lifetime of the Republican Party, because it is not based on the 8%. It's based on the 8%, the 65% of the unenrolled independents, and fiscally responsible Democrats that voted for the audit and want their kids to stay here. Now, specifically what we do is we take these groups, builders who are frustrated, commercial real estate people who are pissed, like there's vacancy downtown, the audit people who are pissed, educators that know that federal scholarship tax credit could be $1.7 billion. And I have a standing group. I have healthcare, I have veterans, I have medtech, I have biotech, I have pharma, and it goes down the list. And then in those groups, we have chair people, and those groups do calls and Zoom calls, and we have identified meetings, and I haven't, the big ones are obviously women's groups, veteran groups, but then we have a status of where we are today, what are the problems, and then what are 2 to 3 things you can do to fix it that really don't cost any money, and what's the big idea? So we already have these policy statements. Healthcare is a big one. And now those groups are going to be the ground game. So one example is there's around 300,000 plus veterans in Massachusetts. You add their families in there, now you're 450,000, 500,000, a massive group. And they're not political, a lot of them, but we're going out, we're organizing them with all the different groups and that I know, and then we'll have captains in different areas. They will have Zoom calls, they will be operationalized. And you don't go to a veteran and say, I'm a politician, vote for me. You say, help me save the Commonwealth. Help me serve again. They will organize, they will mobilize, but you have to treat them as a group, and then you overlay them on all the other infrastructure that's out there, and we're gonna have a massive army knocking doors. My sons, my family, we've been knocking doors now for months, and that's the ground game with the right message, and that's how you win. The last is, the biggest challenge is if everyone just came out and voted, we would win in the biggest landslide victory in the history of Massachusetts. We don't have to get everyone, but we're going to get young people that will come out in a big number, and we're going to have a landslide victory.
How do you get people to understand how bad it is? I mean, we're all like in business or lawyers or cops. We see what's going on.
Right.
You know, if you're in the courtroom, you see, or the courts, you see what's going on. You know, again, they're letting these criminals run free every day. How do you get the message out? I mean, short sleeve sometimes. If there's a particularly atrocious story in the Herald, they're never in the Globe. Needless to say, he puts out a press release about it. I mean, can't you get stuff out on social media? I mean, to me, social media is the big thing now. It's not broadcast media.
So I've had 8 million views in the last 30 days on my social media platform. I have over 30,000 followers on Instagram alone, but the followers are only a subset. I get 3.5 million just on Instagram. So on social media, I have the biggest presence and the views. And the way you get the message out is for young people, they don't watch the news, they don't read the Globe, thank goodness.
Right.
But they're not paying attention.
They ought to know that they could be gunned down by somebody who's on TPS. Am I right, George?
So if you look at who's following me, I know who they are. The majority are 18 to 35 years old. 60% are men, 40% are women. And what I do is I hit. And by the way, the press releases. And I do the press release. Nobody follows press releases, so you can't do a press release and think anyone's going to do it. We have the press releases.
Right.
No one reads them. You need videos of real world stuff. So I go out and run and I talk policy, I have no notes, and people will watch that. What they won't watch is a staged plan, or I'm in the minivan running around. And I have to mix in things that many of you don't know what these trends are, but if you see me do something, you're like, what the hell is he doing? But it has 400,000 views. It means that I'm doing something that's getting people who are younger, who are following us, and they're paying attention. And that's the best way to do this. But you also I'm already on TV. I've been on TV for months because there's another group of people that just watch TV.
In the nursing homes.
And I get this when I'm walking around in downtown Boston. I will have people stop me and they will say, "I'm voting for you, and I'm a Democrat. Enough's enough." And I think that what you just said is everyone who's in the professional world knows everything's broken. We've never been last in the nation in private job growth ever. We're last out of 50. We're last. That's hard to be last out of 50. We're second worst in debt per person, right? Even though second worst, we have 8 taxes: income, property, sales, excise, energy, capital gains tax, millionaires, death tax. Not even California has a death tax. So how can we have those things and still have 8 taxes? So people know it's broke. They know it's broken. People are pissed that we didn't vote for the audit, and that's 2.3 million people voted for the audit. We need 1.5 million to win. We're going to run on the audit, and young people are going to come out and vote for us, and that's how we're going to win.
You know, I hate to seem critical, but you know, you could be
You
out
hate it?
about, you could be out there running around.
I'm going to put you in a boil, you
How
pot.
about holding up a utility bill with the 9 charges?
He's done that.
Every time I do a utility bill, I get over 100,000 views. I hold it up, I put it on the cameras. I carry one is a single woman or her and a husband. It's $580 for the month. I have ones for families. Imagine you're paying $1,200, $1,500 for like small families. That's a down payment if they're trying to save for a house. It's massive. And again, it's going to get worse. Tyler took me out. We went 15 miles out and we saw the vineyard, the turbines, and I learned so much about the fact that these turbines, only about 20 out of the 62 are working. They have a generator on them that requires diesel fuel, which they got to top off. And after 7 to 8 years, he thinks it's 5 to 7. I'm going to be conservative. They shut them down and they got to cut them off and get rid of them. Most of the material that they make is based in China, right? It's the fiberglass. It doesn't work. And so we have a gun to the head for the state that says in 6 years from now, right, 2032, with the net zero, that's supposed to be at 70% of our power comes from wind and solar. 70%. It's impossible. And after 2 decades and over $4 billion of our tax dollars, we get 6% or less on a sunny day, wind and solar. There's not a single manufacturing facility or a hospital that runs on wind and solar, so why would we try to run our state on it completely? It makes no sense. You want to augment with solar? You want to augment it? Fine. But we need natural gas pipelines. That's how we're going to go from 39 cents per kilowatt hour to 10 to 12. Other states are 10 to 12. We need to bring in the pipelines from Connecticut or Pennsylvania or both.
Have you talked to any of Spencer Pratt's people? This is a
Yeah.
serious question.
Yeah.
So
So
he did it on for nothing. You have more money than God. You could get these people.
So let's go through. Who's heard of Spencer Pratt? Raise your hand. Okay. Now this is not a trick question. I'm not trying to take a cheap shot at anyone. Who's heard of Graham Plattner? All right. So the goal is always to win, not to get likes. I mean, I could jump out of a plane naked and probably get 10 million views, but that's not going to have me win. Way to win, and what he did great is he had these entertaining videos, and I watched a lot of them. The problem was many of the videos that had millions and millions of views was not him personally, was not an issue that he was changing, and I give him so much credit. He was a reality TV show, but we're electing a governor. A governor's a CEO and has to fix problems, so I have to mix in the policy with being goofy and doing the lacrosse guy and kicking hacky sack and doing all the fun things that you do, because when you go out and campaign, it is fun. I mean, I get to do amazing things, and I just need to make sure people see that. There's things I'm doing. I'm out everywhere. I'm touring. But here's the policy of how I'm going to fix. AAOK. I'm going to bring accountability. I'm going to bring affordability. I'm going to bring opportunity and jobs. I'm going to keep the community safe. So I've got to keep that as a mantra, and then that's how I'm going to win. Your question: did I talk to them? They have, as it turns out, he had multiple media
Right.
people many of that were doing things after a while on their own, doing all
Right.
these videos. And a lot of those videos were AI and like Star Wars stuff, and he wasn't even in them. But I give him credit because he got so much exposure. But again, the key for me is I'm playing a chess game and I have to win. So everything is about making sure the people understand if they just vote, I win.
Now, you know, you talk about putting all these coalitions together, but I was just talking to Jay Kennedy down there, and he was talking about all the tradesmen. I mean, like, she's bought off some of these tradesmen with, you know, some of these Teamsters type groups. You've seen them. She's going around. You know, she's giving them. They're
She got the
funneling.
truckers. She got Union 25, which is the
Yeah,
truckers.
Teamsters.
The Teamsters, they're working. Well, the problem is the
yeah.
trades aren't working.
Yeah.
A lot of
So how do you get the,
and
you know, if
there's no
someone's
work in the
unemployed,
pipeline for them.
then I mean, if
So
you're unemployed, you don't
I have a
breakfast.
focus on unions. I'm meeting with every union that can meet with me. Probably the one that will not be winnable is the teachers union, because we helped create the federal scholarship tax credit. But I'm going to win over teachers, because if you put $1.7 billion into the system, it's going to help teachers at public school and private school. It goes to 80% of the kids that have that parents that have kids in school, so that's going to happen. And when I go to the unions, I say, first of all, do you want to work? Because there's no cranes. They're against gas pipelines. They're not building homes anymore. They're not growing. They all see that. If you want a job, that's number one, and they all agree. The second thing I say, if you're part of the state, you have a $40 billion unfunded liability, and we have $120 billion in debt in Massachusetts. I had a third-party audit firm go through the books at my expense back in April, all the way back. $120 billion in debt, $40 billion is unfunded. That is the pension for the unions. And our state can't print money, and unions do not have credit priority over a state. So they're not going to get that money, and you can look at towns and other states in history when they go bankrupt. They will not get their pension if things don't change on the balance sheet. And that's the two messages. And most of them will say to me, we don't care what the management does, we're all voting for you. And that's the focus. But if I outwork and I'm just out there and I'm touring facilities, the Springfield example of a $2 billion corrupt business, they didn't have the union PLA contracts in there. That's not in there. Why you're supposed to? It's the biggest contract ever awarded. It's the worst, most corrupt one ever won. And so that's not in there. And then 2 months ago, Maura Healey tried to take a few $100 million out of their pension to have her bureaucrats give money to her friends and family that run businesses into the ground. And that got pushed back because that's the ultimate Ponzi scheme. So the more the unions and the more I meet with them and I interact with them, they want to make sure, no matter what, that they're negotiating with growth, not fighting over the scraps at the table. And right now, the scraps at the table are going away.
One other thing, the energy code that they're forcing on builders now, is they've done this twice in the last 30 years, and it just doesn't work. And it's creating a lot of cost, and it's not efficient.
Right, our stretch codes are out of control. We're one of the few places that have them. One of the things that I plan to do is with the waste, fraud, and corruption, which is billions of dollars, as we pull that out and audit the entire budget, I will take a portion of that and I'll set it aside for towns and cities, rather than sue them for the MBTA Communities Act. That's on them if they want to build. And towns and cities get 26% of your tax dollars back. That's what it is today. That ranks 39th out of 50 in America. So I'll go back with the offer of 35 to 40% of your tax dollars if you do two things. Get rid of the stretch codes, because they add 25,000 of hard costs to every little apartment, and the permitting has to go for single family homes, can no longer be a year and a half plus. It needs to go to 45 days or less, and if you don't have it in 45 days, you automatically get it. If you do those two things, that's going to get towns and cities to want to build. For the ones that drag their feet and they want to fight it, they're going to get thrown out because they're going to try to go to towns to get overrides. We have all these overrides coming, and this is the first time we have overrides for just operational things. Like towns would do overrides for a new school or a new building. You have towns now doing overrides, cities doing overrides for operational things to keep the doors open. And that's where this is going to flip. And the towns that jump on that are going to build and want to get back to building single family homes and making sure that the builders and the companies come back.
One of the things that people don't understand, Mike, is the fact that the cities and towns are desperate for money because the state has cut back on what they were giving to the cities and towns. And people don't get it. And the cities and towns are really beating up on people for, like all these Cape towns now
And the legislature used to be able to fight. You know, if you were like a chairman of a committee, you could make sure you got money for your district. But now basically the legislature is 4 people, and everybody else, Democrat or Republican, is not even a player. What are you going to do about this legislature? There's 30 Republicans out of 200 legislators. I mean, they, you know, if you could veto, you know, like you could have vetoed this horrific abortion bill. They just turn around and they pass it over your veto. I mean, they can do anything they want with those kind of numbers. What are you going to do with no veto no veto that you can sustain?
So it's always important to say what I can do and I can't do. What I can do, day one, we're no longer a sanctuary state. I don't need the legislature. I'm going to enforce the law. That is the law. That's why Maura Healey says that we're not a sanctuary state, even though she does all the policy. So I get rid of sanctuary state status. That's going to mean that the people that are the criminals are going to try to get out or leave. The second thing is right to shelter.
When are we going to get an ad on this? We need an ad on this, don't we?
We have ads on this. Yeah, we have social media on this. But so no sanctuary state is day one. And I will cooperate with local, state, and federal authorities. Then if we get an MS-13 dangerous, violent drug dealer and they're arrested in downtown, we won't do what we do now. We release them back into the community to terrorize people. That's number one. I do that on day one. Number two is right to shelter goes away. It says citizens in the Constitution. It's not allowable, and I'll interpret it and enforce it. Now those people, that's $1.5 billion a year when you add in the cash cards and healthcare and education. So now we're pulling money back in. I will also sign the federal scholarship tax credit, which will bring a 1.7 billion or over $1 billion for parents. I'll get rid of a third of the energy bill. That's a climate tax on your utility bill. And the last thing is I'm going to come in with auditors. I'm going to audit the entire $70 billion plus budget, just like I had done when I was a public company CEO. I'll make all that transparent. And I will work with U.S. Attorney Leah Foley, the Republican, Diana DeZoglio, the Democrat auditor, and if everyone can help me elect Elizabeth Dion, the Republican running for the treasurer office, I will go through that. I don't need approval to go through a balance sheet. And if they're breaking the law, they're going to get caught because U.S. Attorney Leah Foley is enforcing the law. Those things are going to make a lot of the contracts stop. I will also go through with the system. You'll not be allowed to do single source. Right now, the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, they do single source deals for marketing, for all these things, $15,000, $30,000 a month.
Are you saying John Barros isn't totally on the level?
Yes. And I think if you keep doing all these things, so no single sourcing, and if you win based on low bid, right, the game is by the time it's over, there's been 15 change orders and it's the highest bid. So we'll just put in the realistic things. And again, if you want to then take the risk of going out and breaking that, you're going to get caught.
What are you going to do about there is this? I talked about Ed King earlier. He couldn't get out all the Dukakis people out. What are you going to do? Like Maura Healey can't get a prosecutor appointed until this week to the parole board. They're letting these criminals run amok. Have you done any ads about the parole board?
I've done a bunch of stuff on the parole board, but on the parole board, she appointed the parole board. So day one, that's not a legislature. I will appoint a parole board that has like common sense and will protect our citizens.
But it has to be approved by the governor's council, right?
Yeah, but you appoint the governor's council and some of the governor's council. They're going to get elected, but the governors, if you go, they get what they put in for the parole board, right? So either way, if you go in and you have a parole board, then the parole board, if you pick, is going to set the standard. She picked people for her parole board who are pretty radical, and they're the ones that are keeping her from getting a prosecutor on that. But they now have a new prosecutor. They just didn't take her first one. But that, to me, is just a sign of leadership. She can't even get her own woke crowd and ideology to approve the people that she's pushing forward. She did propose a prosecutor. She knows it's broken. They're releasing people. The person who got released that shot up Cambridge, everyone made a big deal that the judge let the person out after 3.5 years with a prior record, but there was no criticism that there was some, but it should have been really exposed. The parole board knew he had mental health issues. They knew he was dangerous, and they released him anyhow.
How are you going to appoint judges when you have to get them through a governor's council like this?
Yeah, that's the one to be, that's the challenge, right? There are certain things I'm not going to have the ability, or I'm going to have to finesse, but on those things, I think that's where you bring your argument to the people. That's where you try to build the consensus.
The bully pulpit, as they say.
The judges are a huge issue.
Yep.
They're a huge issue. We don't have, there's not a fair court in Massachusetts if you're a conservative or you're fighting for a conservative cause. It's impossible. Okay, so
A constitutional cause.
Yeah.
Like Toby with the guns.
I filed a lawsuit against the city of Boston over the auto patio situation in the North End.
Yep.
I personally spent $250,000. There was 10 other plaintiffs in the lawsuit. We spent a lot of money. The court didn't even read our complaint. When we presented the last time at the Superior Court, the 3 judges didn't know what count 2 of the complaint was. Okay, so nobody read it. Yep. They held their decision for 10 months, and they denied us all counts except for one, the unfair tax count, which we're gonna take them to Massachusetts court now for the unfair tax, and we want to take them to the Supreme Court. And out of principle at this point, we're throwing money in a direction that is very difficult to achieve success, but the corruption of the judges is amazing.
Yeah, it's totally corrupt. So it is public record when Diana DiZoglio wasn't getting anything done, they told us that it was because the auditing legislature may not be constitutional. But they were actually blocking her from getting to the Supreme Judicial Court to even find that out. And Attorney General Campbell was blocking it. So I met with her, I identified a lawyer that would take on the state, I offered financial support, and that's the reason it got to the first component. So now she has legal representation. The problem is they've already gutted everything and probably shredded. And remember, the legislature was only 120 million, but she probably was really after some of the NDAs and the embarrassing things. But that's why we just have to audit. The other thing is they do things that are not constitutional, and then the towns don't know how to fight back. So on the MBTA Communities Act, they don't have the money to fight back. They don't have the money to fight back, so they went to the towns and they said, okay, if you don't enforce this, now remember, MBTA Communities Act, putting 1,500 condos in a town, if the town doesn't have the water, infrastructure, roads, and schools, you're gonna destroy the town. They can't afford that. So they could have the towns, and as governor, I will go and I'd say to the towns, listen, that's unconstitutional. I will ban you altogether. I'll provide some support, and we'll take them on, and we're gonna win because it's unconstitutional for them the government to threaten to withhold your tax dollars. That would never have gotten through. And there's a lot of other things. The last one is on the taxing. So if we have a Mike and Renee Minogue Foundation. We give to causes for veterans, for homeless, for kids, for education. But all these groups that we're on, they're panicked because what's happening when people leave residence here? They're told by their tax accountants, yeah, you spent 2 more weeks in Florida, but if you give your money and your time back to these loves and places in Massachusetts, you're going to fail the totality test by the auditors. You will be audited and you will pay taxes in Massachusetts. That's not legal. So if that's an accountant rule, I'll get that overturned. If it's a lawyer rule, I'll fight like hell for that. You can't tell people where they can and can't donate money depending on where they live. Again, it's just, and no one's ever challenged it. So there's a lot of things of being a public company CEO for 19 years that I've been up and down the ranks against a lot of sleazy lawyers and a lot of hedge funds and also even the government lawyers, is I'm going to use lawyers to fight for things that you can win, put the energy there, knowing that it's corrupt, but the best way to get rid of corruption is expose it. So any chance I see a judge release someone with cashless bail, it was last year, a mob of people beat the crap out of a bunch of police officers. They went and they had to have facial reconstruction. They went to the emergency room. And what happened? A day later, you got 2 people got out on bail for like $500 and $1,500. How's that possible? That should have been, if I'm governor, I'm doing a press conference. I'm going to be talking about everything they did.
Do it as a candidate.
I'll be doing it as a candidate, but you don't introduce people as, hi, I'm Mike Minogue. Did you hear this guy got beaten up? So part of this is I have to have a message and I have to get to know people. But I also have to prioritize
The clock.
things. Yeah.
The clock
Yeah.
is tick, tick,
Yeah. Well,
ticking.
September 1st, I click another check off the board, but I've been focused for several months on the general election.
I mean, look at the MBTA communities. I mean, you raise a good point there. I mean, look at Milton. You know, a lot of people here know Milton or Winthrop. These places are out of their minds. Why don't you tailor? Are you tailoring social media messages?
Kathy, we have to get him on my social media because I get about 120 million views in the
social
last
media
6
platform,
months. Yeah.
and you yourself aren't on
Yeah.
social media, and he does.
But I'm
do
on Howie's
everything on
show,
social
and
media.
I put your stuff. So I'm going to send you all the stuff now
You're talking about
that
a
just
platform
us.
You're not even on. He
But-
does. He's been very successful. At
Well, I
social media.
gotta be more successful. So I agree, and I gotta get out more. But I'm out working. I'm everywhere, and I'm going every day touring things. But the key is on the message. You have to have the message also of why they want to vote for me. But I'm definitely doing the criticism and then blending in the solution. And as we get closer, that's where the independents are going to matter so much, because the independents really elect the unenrolled. The independents really elect the candidates, and that's what we've got to make sure. Those are people that are not politically engaged and they don't know any of these details. Like if I go to a generic group and I say the audit or MBTA, they're like, what are you talking about? If I go to a smaller group and I say they know every single detail of it. So the messaging has got to be making sure that people know we are going to simplify, make it easier to live here, lower the costs, lower the taxes, and again, make it the best place to live, work, and raise a family.
What do you what's your strategy going to be on what she signed this week with the abortion bill? I mean, it's way over the top, as you know. It involves
Yeah.
abortion all the way up to 9 months, and it could be a mother that just has mental illness. That's what the law says. And there's a lot of independents, and also men that I spoke to in the week. They just couldn't believe it. You've been very specific about that you're going to follow the law. That unfortunately is now a new law that's just crazy. What's your strategy on that?
So the law already exists, and I follow the law, and I've been clear on my position based on my faith and based on my career in healthcare, saving people's lives. But this is one that is the extreme party politics, and I'm disappointed that Maura Healey, rather than try to even stay on the issues, is using women's health to try to divide us, create anger, hate, and more confusion. Personally, I think that we should focus on women's healthcare overall. I've released my healthcare plan. There are women outside of Boston, if we want to talk about women's health, that have to spend, maybe 1 to 2 hours to get to a doctor or get high-risk maternity care. And if we're going to do something that is revising a current law that's so sensitive and really shouldn't be a political issue, I think that's where it's up to the people of Massachusetts, not a political establishment trying to leverage something for an election.
Yeah, but on that, I think you're missing an opportunity because, I follow the issue closely, and it's amazing how many people are against it. Okay, and the people that are against it are not flagging a Republican or a conservative flag. Catholics, many Democrats, minorities. Okay, the Hispanic community is completely against abortion and abortion.
So
on demand.
to Howie's,
But at the end of the day, is if you ask me, and I hope you win the election, I think that she lost the election
With them.
and throw you a
If
big
they
bone
understand
with what she just did.
Yeah.
Okay, the reaction from people is atrocious. I mean, I don't care. If you believe that abortion is fine till a certain point, it's your business. I don't believe in it myself. I'm a pro-lifer, but the 9 months, I mean, she looks terrible nationwide,
It's a joke.
in the state of Massachusetts, and in the world.
Worldwide.
I follow world news and in the world. So you need to grab that issue, and if you don't, you may not win the election. You need to grab that issue and you gotta make it yours. Women's health has nothing to do with the murder of children. Period. Okay, and anybody who believes that needs to do their homework.
Yeah.
That has nothing to
So
do.
I'm the first candidate that's been pro-life in Massachusetts in decades, and I am. So I've been on that. I actually issued a press release when it came out, so there's a press release on it. I also did social media on it. My point, though, is that the election, when I'm out and I'm talking to people, the majority of people are more worried about being able to pay their heating bill or getting a job or having their kids stay here. That being said, I do think they went too far, and I do think that in their mind, this is something that it's all they want to talk about. And I don't want to take the bait, though, and make this all we want to talk about, because I want to talk about the audit. I want to talk about how expensive energy is. I want to talk about that we're last in the nation in job growth. But I've already been on the record, and I've taken a lot of heat over it, and people are telling me this. But I agree with your point 100%, because what they've done is they've taken pro-choice people that have a little bit of concern about pro-life people, and they've really brought us together to say there's an issue here that goes past that, where at 9 months people get concerned about the lack of restrictions. But again, an election for me to win, I've got to make sure that I'm still talking about the number one problem people have. But I think this is helpful overall.
It's part of that number one
Yeah,
problem.
and that's one of the
Because
groups.
a lot
That's one of the groups.
People use abortion to plan their families, and in Massachusetts, you can't afford to have a family today. It's too expensive.
Right,
You
and
can't have a family.
that's a great point, because that's the number one thing that I need to be talking about.
Yeah,
Because these other people are not going to have an abortion, but the number one thing, you just said it, that's where it starts. I need to talk about how you can't afford to have a
You can tie
family.
it up to other things. I mean, we have a governor, we have a Mayor Wu in Boston, who constantly want to bring in illegal aliens. Why are we not, birthing our own children instead of taking care of the children of others?
I'm doing my part. I got 5.
Yeah, I got 4, so I'm right behind you. And I got a little one. I'm an old guy. So, but
Most
Renee-
of us
Renee-
here are on the right side.
Renee, we up
of,
for another one?
of
What do you think?
history.
Okay.
within reality, you know what I mean? Their agenda is to shrink our numbers so they can replace us. It's part of the great replacement theory. They want to replace us. So if we abort all our children, they're going to be happier. Aside from the fact that she's a monster. She's not playing in the same team that all of us, or the majority of the people in Massachusetts are playing. She has her own agenda. And it's a vicious agenda. It's an agenda of malice, okay, hate, all right? Everything she did during the pandemic with the monies that were given to her to take care of these people that were coming over from other countries, to friends and family.
I think that's not the abortion bill is just pandering.
Yeah.
It's boo bait for the bubbas, they're reverse bubbas, as they used to call it. I mean, they don't want to campaign on their record because it's so abysmal. But the other part of it is she's also going to tie you to Trump. So, and we all love Trump, but what are you gonna do when she says it's not my fault that nobody can afford to have kids in Massachusetts unless they're illegal aliens. It's Donald Trump's fault.
So only in Massachusetts is it breaking news that a Republican supported the Republican president, number one.
Right.
And I acknowledge that. I did support I thought the most important issue was closing the border, which I think most people would agree with, even in Massachusetts, because of what was happening in the drugs and fentanyl. But I'm focused on fixing Massachusetts. The governor doesn't work for either president of either party. When I was the CEO of a public company for 19 years, a new president came in from a different party. I went down to DC with the association. I was actually chairman of the Medical Device Association. We worked with the new president and the association to maximize the benefit for our patients and employees. 2 years into the next term, we're gonna have a new president. If that president's a Democrat or Republican, I'm gonna go down to DC. I'm gonna look for every opportunity to maximize for our citizens, entrepreneurs, businesses, and a third of our budget, 1/3 of our budget comes from the federal government. And if we want the Sagamore Bridge, if we want things to happen, and every time she brings up something like this, I'm going to say, I'm Massachusetts Mike. I only care about Massachusetts, the accountability, affordability, jobs, and keeping the community safe.
You talk about organizing a ground game, but we also talked about the Mass Teachers Association, and we've seen what the Mass Teachers Association has done in the last two cycles. They got through the millionaires tax after it had been voted down 7 times, 6 times by the voters, once by the SJC. They finally got it through, and then they came, $18 million they spent, and then they get $1 billion a year forever. That's a good investment. That's a better investment than you made.
Well,
And-
it's gonna get more than that for the parents, but they're not getting the $1 billion in a year, right? Originally, it was approved for schools, their schools, their control of public schools, and infrastructure. They need it for infrastructure now because everything is falling apart. Up in North Shore, they're dumping raw sewage into the Merrimack River. We got brown water and Bridgewater. I mean, we got all these different problems. And last year, she took $400 million out of it and gave it to Harvard for research, even though that violates again what the law was for. So they're going to whittle that money down and they're going to waste it. And they already are laying off teachers in
Right.
Boston and other places
But,
right
but
now.
the point is, they've learned how to win. So the next time out, they came and they got rid of MCAS. So they got $1 billion,
Yeah.
whatever it is now, and they got no accountability for what they do. Now they're going to be you
But-
talk
but-
about
but that's
what are you going to do when they start? And you know how they do it. They harvest the ballots. That's what they do, and it's legal in Massachusetts to do what they're doing. Well, I mean, are you going to have an organization that's going to be able to ballot harvest and the Mass Teachers Association? I'm asking these as honest
Well,
questions.
let me start with the goal again is back to winning. They didn't win on the federal scholarship tax credit. You know why they didn't win? Because we have the Blaine Act in the state, which keeps your tax dollars from going to a private school. You're not going to get around it. So 3.5 years ago, Renee and I, who work with a lot of schools, help build schools, especially in areas that have basically the poor zip codes. And I can't win in Massachusetts for grants for kids. But we did find out that kindergarten kids get grants from the federal government. That was started with Obama. So there is the loophole. So what we did, we worked on the federal scholarship tax credit to put it into law because it's federal money, and this bypasses the teachers union. If and only if the governor opts in. So I am running. We got that through. Ultimately, I'm going to win.
So
And
they're really
we're
going to
gonna
work.
opt in.
This is as big as the billionaires tax.
So we're going to win, and day one will transform education. And the nice thing, back to the question on unions, whenever I'm in unions, firemen, police, construction, they all have kids, and they all are a little bit fed up with the stuff in the public schools. And this is, to their members, is thousands of dollars of savings right off the top that lower the cost. So I tell every union member, hey, you have kids? And they do. So we just have to out-organize them, but we're going to have a ground game. We're going to try to do the mail-ins. Are they going to be aggressive? Absolutely.
Because it's way over time, they wanna ask questions from
Oh,
people in the audience.
Okay, so we're going to just open it up. Sorry, if we've been dominating the conversation, but does anyone who has a question to ask, you want to go down to the mic there, or is it?